Welcome, everyone, to Partner Up with Amy Carroll. As a communication coach, trainer, speaker, and author, I am delighted to be your host and excited to bring you insights and ideas to help you solve your communication conundrums. This is the 27th episode of my show, Partner Up with Amy Carroll. If you want to find out more about me, what the show's about, feel free to listen to previous episodes on my website, carrollcoaching.com, or the VoiceAmerica.com business channel. And there's an app you can download to make it even easier. Of course, you can check it out on your favorite podcast app as well. Now, if you missed last week's show, I interviewed business executive turned award-winning professor Giuseppe Conte. Our topic was collaborative negotiations. Have a listen to discover the key principles for successful negotiations and find out how you can get Giuseppe's complimentary negotiation pack, which was full of templates, slides, and articles. Today, my guest is Matthias Hartmann. Welcome, Matthias.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Amy.
Absolutely. Hey, Matthias, I like to give my listeners a little background of who I've got on the show as a guest, so let me just start with that.
Sure.
Matthias comes from a long career in international sales. His last position was sales director of Europe, Middle East, and Africa for a multinational. Managing and coaching sales managers is, or rather was, second nature for Matthias since he gave up the corporate world to focus on the coaching part. So, Matthias, I got to pause here for a second and ask you, you've been coaching unofficially for a long time. What was the trigger that inspired you to take that leap into full-time coaching?
Amy, in retrospect, I think the process started in 2016 when my father passed away. And at that time, I just knew I just wanted to start on a deeper journey into my core or into my essence.
So it's interesting you say that, Matthias, because I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that. When a significant life event happens, like in your case, losing a parent, often it causes us to really, as they say, take a step back. And so that was really the plunge that caused you to. Okay.
And in retrospect, in coaching, we call this a coachable moment. Whenever people have an accident or they get sick or there's a pandemic or something dramatic happens, you lose your job, whatever. And that's when people kind of wake up, and we call it a coachable moment.
Yeah, that's true. I've had quite a few of those in my lifetime, more than I like maybe. So since becoming a life coach, Matthias uses an embodied approach, enabling him to dig deep into internal blockages of change. Having given up the corporate job also allowed Matthias to continue his journey inwards to help clients experience transformational change. And I just love this. Listen up, listeners. This is Matthias's tagline. He calls himself the coach to call when life is calling for change. That really says it all pretty well.
Thank you.
Originally from Germany, Matthias has lived in various cities on 3 continents. He's been to 74 countries on the planet and speaks 4 languages fluently. Oof. And get this one. Apparently, his clients both hate him and love him in that order. I think we'll soon be discovering why that is. Matthias knows that one of the areas I coach people on is becoming more confident and dynamic speakers face-to-face and virtually. So for this reason, we decided that today's show, we would explore the fear of public speaking and other deep emotions using this embodied approach. So let's get started. Matthias, before we jump into maybe the juicy questions, I really would love for you to start with giving us a definition of embodiment. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I mean, embodiment means that the body has an intelligence, and we don't tap into the body's intelligence. Another aspect is that the body speaks all the time. However, we don't listen to our bodies. And for me as a coach, when a client walks in, or I see a client nowadays on a screen, the body speaks all the time. I notice the breathing. I notice the eye movements. I notice the posture. I notice a lot of things, what's happening in the body. And then the client starts to speak. And an embodied coaching approach means that I take the intelligence of the body into account with my coaching.
Okay, so and what I can already hear is that the gift for us will be to tap into that knowledge and to listen better to our bodies. That's where we're going on this.
Correct. Yeah. And the body never forgets. We're going to talk about this hopefully in this program. The body never forgets, but we like to suppress certain things in our lives which we don't like to face up to, but the body stores all of that stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's now move into the topic precisely. You know, I work with a lot of people who claim to be afraid of speaking in public, yet you say that the fear of public speaking does not exist. What do you mean by that?
I was
afraid. Very provocative.
I know. I'm afraid you're going to ask that question. I'm saying that fear of public speaking does not exist. For me, the fear of public speaking is a fear of rejection. And we as human beings are afraid of rejection. And the difference with public speaking is that with public speaking, the stakes are high. So you may be losing your job, or you may be losing your reputation. So the stakes are high. However, you don't need a public to be afraid of public speaking. Amy, can you imagine a situation, for example, like you in front of one person, it's a job interview.
Right.
The stakes are high.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, you're afraid of rejection.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying that the fear of public speaking does not exist. It's a fear of rejection, which links to our level of trust in ourselves.
So a trust in ourselves. So, all right. So the fear of public speaking, you say, is a fear of rejection.
Correct. And all I'm trying to interrupt you here. And the emotion of fear, there's an emotion of fear and the emotion of trust. The emotion of fear overrides the emotion of trust. And
hold on, let me say that again. Fear overrides trust.
Correct.
Okay.
And imagine now you stand on stage, you want to speak in public, and you are afraid of rejection. The stakes are high, and you don't trust yourself. Well, you can tell that's going to be a terrible public speech.
Oh, God, it sounds like a disaster. As my sister Regina says, a car crash waiting to happen.
And everybody can see that you operate from fear and that you don't trust yourself, because when the stakes are high and we don't trust ourselves and we are afraid of being rejected, our body makes us it makes us either fight, flee, or freeze. And when you speak,
I'm familiar with that because of the model of predator-prey partner, right? So the
correct, yes,
predator's
exactly.
The fight. Yep. Okay, got it.
Correct. But when you speak in public, you can't really fight or flee.
That would be awkward.
That would be a bit. But you could flee the stage or whatever. So what's left over? Freeze. And so when you speak in public and you have no trust in yourself, you freeze up. You basically stand there like a brick, to use a metaphor. And your breathing gets shallow, your heartbeat gets faster, you start sweating, you may get in cold feet. Everybody can see you operate from fear and not from trust.
Let's say going back about 24 years ago, I was invited by a friend to speak to a group of students. And this was before I did any presentations, training, or improving my skills. And somewhere between saying yes and walking into my friend's classroom, it was like a week apart. I was so nervous that my chin began to quiver. Like, my teeth were chattering. I couldn't stop them, Matthias. I gave a 45-minute speech with my chin quivering la, 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 like this. And I kept saying, it's so cold in here. And then one of the students said, Miss Carroll, would you like my coat? No, thanks. I knew if I took the guy's coat and it was still happening, they would know for sure it was nervousness.
So what was the level of trust in yourself at that moment?
It was fine until I walked into the classroom, and then it plummeted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Though I think that was a coachable moment. Tell me if this is true, because
Yes.
I went home and my sister Pat, who was coaching people on presentation skills, I went back to this US to visit her, and I said to her, fix me, make it go away. I never want to have that happen again. And that was the moment that I was ready to make the changes.
Okay. Hopefully later on we have time to actually cover the subject that you cannot make an emotion go away.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. We will. We have to talk about that, because
Yes.
that's what I wanted. Though instead I got a skill set, which helped. So, and you talk a lot about how fear is future related. Talk more about that. Explain that to me.
The fear by definition takes you into the future because you're afraid of a future event.
Okay.
Let's say you are afraid of dogs and you happen to cross the street, a dog in the street. You're not bitten yet. You fear the possibility, a future event of the dog biting you. Or when you stand on stage and you talk, you have not lost your reputation yet. You have not lost your job yet. It's a future possibility.
Yeah.
So that fear of rejection is a future possibility. Mm-hmm. That's how that's how fear takes you into the future. And since we talk about trust is a present moment emotion. You can only trust a present moment. The fear overrides the trust. The future overrides the present moment. When you then stand on stage, you don't trust yourself because you fear a future event.
Okay, so I understand now that we can only fear a possible future event. Is there also a link to our past?
Unfortunately, yes, Amy. And that has to do, I'm sorry to...
Bad news. Now I see why people hate you sometimes.
And that has to do with our basic human needs. Do you remember Maslow, the pyramid of? Okay, I think we all do.
Hierarchy of needs for listeners.
Yes, exactly. Maslow. The hierarchy of needs, and we have basic human social needs. Okay. And at the end of the day, we would like to belong. We would like to belong to a group. We would like to be seen. We would like to be heard. We would like to be liked. And I guess the cherry on the cake is we would like to be loved. Sure. And each time we're being rejected, we are deprived of those social needs. And to make it even worse, we then experience social pain.
Wow.
And that I found interesting that neuroscientists found out that the social pain is being processed in the very same brain region where we experience physical pain.
Are you saying that if I have some form of rejection, it can manifest like actual physical pain in my body?
Correct.
That's crazy.
I would actually like to illustrate this point with you, Amy. Do you mind being a little guinea pig here?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Is there an event in your recent past where you felt rejected, Amy?
You just go for the jugular. Okay. Recent past where I felt rejected. Oh yeah. Oh, this happens regularly. So I've got to back up and give you a little history.
Okay.
So I'm an extrovert, and I'm cute, and I like to flirt. Okay, those are good things to know about me, within appropriate circumstances. And so for years, I was always in the habit of I'd be walking down a street, and if I would catch the eyes of some guy who I found attractive, and we would have this little moment of flirting, little smile, little wink, and we'd both go about our day. This would happen to me consistently because I like to, and this is also an instant. I like to connect with people. I like to have that little buzz and exchange. So I would say, Matthias, in the last 5, maybe now 7 years, that has changed dramatically. When I'm walking down the street now, the guys will either look at me and look past me, like through me, like they don't exist, or won't even look at me at all.
Okay.
So as superficial as that sounds, I have to admit that is like a form of rejection for me.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that story,
Sure.
Amy. What was the level of trust in yourself when the guy walks past you and he just looks through you? What is the level of trust you have in yourself in that moment?
I'm not sure if this is how you mean it. I question myself, so my trust is low because it's like, oh, I must not be cute anymore.
Okay, so you experience a lower level of trust in yourself.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you also experience a form of pain or social pain based on that rejection?
I guess that's what it is. There definitely feels like it's like a little bit of a, like the little kid on the playground and they're not throwing the ball to me. It's like, no, you're being excluded. Yeah. So there is this little bit of rejection, actually.
Okay. And just one more question, Amy, or perhaps two. Nick, when you now walk on the street and you see like Mr. Prince Charming walking your direction, do you try to avoid or perhaps avoid that kind of rejection, or you still focus on the face of the person to try to get that contact?
When I'm feeling brave and I'm in like kind of my scientific laboratory experimental, I'm like, okay, maybe this time though I won't get rejected. Though definitely on days when I'm not feeling like I don't want to expose myself, I don't want to feel vulnerable, or I don't want to risk the rejection. I might not make eye contact with them.
Okay. And this is exactly what I mean, that in that situation, the last 4 to 7 years, you said you developed a kind of a fear.
Yes.
And believe it or not, that fear serves a purpose. And in general, that fear is there for your mental and physical well-being. It tries to avoid that rejection, and it tries to avoid that social pain.
Yes.
And but this is an important point also not for you only, Amy, but also for the listeners. We now believe that the fear blocks us. However, from making contact with people on the street or from speaking in public, we believe that the fear blocks us.
Right.
However, the problem is that we block the fear. This is the real problem. Not that the emotion blocks us.
Okay.
We block the emotion from coming to the surface. Does this resonate, or does it make sense to you what I'm saying here?
I'm getting very curious, and I can feel like I want to just turn this into a personalized coaching session for me, and say, well, listeners, just hold on tight. Maybe there will be something interesting. Okay.
And if we block an important part of ourselves, like if we block fear, or if we block shame, or if we block guilt, or whatever it is, we don't want to feel, or we don't want to let it bubble up to the surface. However, it shows up in the body.
That's what I was just going to ask you. What's the problem with blocking it? Why? What's the cost to us?
It shows up in the body.
In what ways?
It causes a low-level chronic tension. And so people run around with low-level chronic tension or other symptoms, physical symptoms, and they can't explain it. However, it's linked to everything they don't want to feel, or those kind of emotions for them to bubble up, and because they're afraid that those emotions block them from living a balanced life, from speaking in public, or whatever it is.
So now what's popping to my mind is a conversation you and I had a couple of weeks ago. We did another spontaneous coaching session. And I remember we were exploring my fears. And one specific fear that came to the surface was because of COVID and things changing so dramatically, there was this maybe irrational, though nonetheless, a fear of me losing my business.
Okay.
And
Yes, remember.
yeah. And what we identified was I was having this tension in my jaws. Can you explain the emotion of fear and the tension in my jaw, how that's linked?
Okay, I'm happy to do so in a second, Amy. I would like to know, how was that coaching session for you to actually talk about? We ended up with a fear, and then we ended up with seeing where that fear is physically located in your body, and that's how we ended up with your jaws.
Yes.
How was that experience for you?
It was a relief to name the fear.
Okay.
And it surprised me that that I could connect it to this tension. Okay,
great. Let me just explain how this all works, Amy. But let me start with an emotion. An emotion is motivational energy that needs expression in movement.
All right, say it again.
Okay, I was afraid to say so. An emotion is motivational energy. It is energy. And that energy needs expression. Mm-hmm. And it needs expression through movement. Let me illustrate this. Imagine when Amy was small and you were a little kid and Amy was happy. You experienced the emotion of happiness.
Yes.
So that energy of that happiness needed to express itself through movement.
Yeah.
Perhaps you wanted to jump or run or laugh. This is how, let's say, happiness expresses itself through you or in you. Imagine now you're being told, don't run, don't jump, don't laugh. You'd rather be told, sit still, be quiet. So that energy of that happiness, that motivational energy, could not express itself. It gets stuck.
Suppressed.
And that suppressed. And the suppressed energy now gets stuck in your body and it shows up as tension. Mm-hmm. Because obviously we all know this. If we are told don't or sit still, we tense up. Does this make sense so far?
Yeah, it's making sense. Now, we're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, Matthias. And I think you had said that you wanted to give an assignment to the listeners over the break. Should we do that now?
Sure.
Okay.
So a little assignment here for the audience. We live in a society which is notoriously emotionally illiterate when it comes to expressing emotions.
Yes.
Or being aware of our emotional states.
Yeah.
So we at most can discriminate perhaps 12 or dozen emotions in our lives. So I would encourage the listeners to take 30 seconds and just be still, to tap into their body and simply feel. And you perhaps want to focus on your heartbeat or your breathing, or perhaps on your sweating. You perhaps have cold feet. And if you come across as anything unpleasant, like tension or pain or whatever it is, just try to name the emotion and be with it. And please don't go to your mind to figure out how you feel. Just take 30 seconds, check with your body, see how you feel. So
instead of going through the brain, you're saying go sit with you physiologically, see if you can notice something, and ways to do that would be paying attention to the heart rate, the breathing, your extremities, and to see then if you can
name the underlying emotion.
Okay, then name the underlying emotion. When we come, actually, before we go, can you just give a distinction between what's the difference between a feeling and emotion? Because I think we're getting close to that now, and that will help.
When an emotion is strong enough, and it comes to our awareness, then we call it a feeling. So we are in an emotional state 24/7. Every single second of our lives, we're in an emotional state. We're not aware of it. We don't need to be aware of it. That's fine. But if an emotion is so strong that it actually, we are aware of it, oh, I feel bad, I feel good, then an emotion, or we consider that emotion to become a feeling. That's the difference between an emotion which runs in the background 24/7. If it's strong enough, it becomes a feeling.
Okay, I'm kind of getting that. All right, so we're going to take a break now. And listeners, you have your assignment. 30
You too.
seconds.
Amy, you
Me
too.
too? Okay.
Yeah.
We all have our assignment, people. Okay, so tap into your body and simply feel the dominant emotion right now. Now, if you want to connect with Matthias, I'm going to encourage you to drop him an email. And you can do that at sending an email to coaching@embodied.one. And that's coaching@embodhi.one. And that's also Matthias's website, same address. Now, you can also reach out to Matthias on LinkedIn, and his name is Matthias, last name Hartmann, Hartmann. When we come back from the break, we're going to be hearing more from Matthias and taking an even deeper dive into deep emotions. Stay tuned. You're listening to Partner Up with Amy Carroll on the Voice America Business Channel. Welcome back to Partner Up with Amy Carroll. My guest today is Matthias Hartmann. And Matthias's tagline is just delightful: the coach to call when life is calling for change. So Matthias, let's go back to where we were just before the break. I want you to give us a little more explanation, detail about the distinction between feeling versus emotion.
Yeah, I really think it's an important point, Amy, and I'm glad you're asking me about this because people have no really clue what the difference is. And let me just recap. An emotion runs in the background 24/7, even when we are asleep, all the time.
Okay.
Once an emotion is strong enough that it comes to our awareness, then it becomes a feeling. And how it makes us feel, that feeling, depends on the biochemicals being released in the brain. I mean, we all heard about the stress hormone. We all heard about a good feeling hormone like dopamine. So depending on those hormones being released in our brain, a feeling feels good or a feeling feels bad, which has little to do with the emotion which runs in the background. So it starts with an emotion strong enough turns into a feeling. However, I said before that an emotion is motivational energy to make us move. So once we feel stressed, or we feel nervous, or we feel whatever, we want to take action. Let's say you feel stressed and you say, well, give me a drink. Or you feel nervous about speaking in public. You say, well, give me a drink as well, whatever.
That's a solution.
Solution for everything. And so this taking action then becomes our behavior. And we behave in a certain way based on a feeling, which is based on an emotion. But people don't realize that their behavior is originated from an emotion. I just want to make sure that this point is understood. Because people believe in free will. They believe, I decided to have a drink. Well, I don't think so.
You see that the emotions are driving or the behaviors much more strongly than we can even imagine.
Correct. Thank you.
Fascinating, which is why it's so important for us to be aware of it so that we can move into choice.
Correct. Nice. Did you do that little exercise, Amy, while we had?
I'm a very good student, Matthias. I did my homework.
So what came up? How do you feel?
The feeling that was coming up was anxious because what I haven't shared with you, Matthias, is I don't know if you can tell, I'm having a little bit of struggle with speaking today because I went to the the orthodontist this morning, and they've just put in a row of braces in my mouth.
Wow.
Which is, really weird because you got this, you're maneuvering and trying to pronounce words normally are not so challenging. And I'm also stressed because I was biting the side of my mouth accidentally earlier today. And I'm really nervous that I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to like yelp during the show and have to explain myself. So yes,
Okay.
I was anxiety.
Okay. So anxiety or nervousness?
Oh, I guess, more nervous. Yeah.
Nervous. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really freaking out, what is the level of nervousness in your body as we speak?
Well, it's funny. It was higher until I admitted it. So it was
Oh,
about,
what? Wow.
yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah, yeah. Because now it's like, okay, if I mess up, people will know, at least they'll know I'm not drunk. I think it's about a 4 now.
A 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be able to locate that nervousness on level 4 in your body?
It felt like it was in my chest.
In your chest.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And this, thank you for sharing this, Amy. And this is just a little exercise for us to realize that we only use the mind to articulate what we feel. People tend to use their mind to decide how they feel.
They think they're doing it.
They think they're doing it. Yeah. Correct. They think I'm not nervous. They think I'm not stressed. They think I'm not whatever. But how I started the conversation, the body never lies. You can tell. So your mind can come up with whatever the mind comes up with. I'm not nervous. The body shows. And the more often you tap into your body and check on how you actually feel, what are the sensations, the more literate you become in actually discovering all the things which are happening deep down in your body.
And then once you become more literate, then what can you do as a result of that?
As I mentioned before, this is our intelligence. Yeah. You can tap into that intelligence and live with a deeper connection to who you are. Once you have embraced all aspects of who you are, including the things you don't like those deep emotions like fear or shame or guilt or whatever it is.
So it's not getting rid of it, it's finding peace with them?
Peace, I don't know if I like that expression. I say it's an acceptance and integration.
Oh, that's nice. Peace for me is, it's the acceptance piece that works. And then one step further, integration. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's basically what I do in a coaching session.
Yeah, and now I'm starting to see the link with the body. Can you tell us what happens in a formal coaching session when you're using an embodied approach? Do you have an example you can share?
Okay, sure. So it starts off with identifying which emotion is underlying the issue the client presents.
Okay.
The second step is to see where that energy of that emotion, that stuck emotion, is located in the body. For Amy, for you, it was emotion fear and the jaws in the body.
Right, for the business.
And for the business. That was the issue. The issue was like fear of of your business surviving. And for a lot of people, this is already a long process. Because especially men, they live from their neck up. They don't really feel much from the neck down. Women are much easier, or they have much more capability to tap into their body. And so this is a long process to figure out what is the client's issue, what is the emotion underlying the issue, and where is that energy stuck in the body.
Okay.
So this is the first part. And for a lot of clients, this is already a big revelation. Like, wow, an issue in my life is related to an emotion which is showing up in my body. So for a lot of people, it's like, wow, I had no idea. So actually, the pieces come together. And then we carry on. Once we have identified the emotion and see where it's stuck in the body, we just go and spend time being with that emotion. And there's no need to analyze anything. There's no need to understand anything. There's no need to judge anything. You just are in front or with that emotion.
When we were speaking a couple of weeks ago, I remember it was the analogy of being just sitting on a park bench with the emotion.
Yes, to be with an emotion. And simply, we are human beings. We're not human doings. We do all the time, but we're human beings. And it may sound an easy thing just to be with your fear, but you are with your...
It doesn't sound easy at all.
Well, it is tough. To be honest, it is tough.
Except the analogy, that visual of me just sitting on a park bench with my fear, I could make it a nice, warm, sunny day too. We could be eating ice cream cones, I mean, so it feels doable. You've given me a visualization, an image that I could hold on to, or sitting with sadness, for example.
But the deep emotions, Amy, you can't do this by yourself. You would have to have a trained professional or coach to be in the presence with you, because otherwise your mind will prevent you from facing up all your deep emotions which you have suppressed or put away for years or decades.
Okay, so you want to have the support to be able to take the deep dive. Got it.
Yes. But it's important for you to realize that you cannot think yourself out of an emotional blockage. Forget the mind. It's a physical process. You are in physical presence with your fear. And that, honestly, Amy, for a lot of people, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's why they hate me initially. It's a major discomfort.
Right. Okay. Now I'm getting it. And Matthias, I remember you telling me a story about a woman who was a nurse. What was that example? I loved hearing that.
That was a tough session. It was a nurse in the US. She was working with COVID patients, and so the subject of the coaching session was she didn't feel motivated to go to work. She was stressed. And after a bit of digging, she realized, well, it's actually, she was afraid of getting sick.
Okay.
And then we went a bit deeper, and so that fear of becoming sick turned into, or actually it was a fear of dying. So the real subject of that coaching session was to deal with her fear of death. And then we we located that fear of death in her body, and then we went through the process. We were in presence of that fear. And Amy, it's tough. Honestly, it's tough to be in that session, to be in presence of your fear of dying.
Wow, yeah.
And once you move from discomfort to comfort to discomfort, once you get your body eases into the possibility to actually be with that fear of death, then I ask her a tough question. I ask her, what is the worst of being dead?
What's the worst thing could happen if you die?
What's the worst thing you can happen if you die?
Wow.
Okay. And obviously it just pushed her almost over the cliff. And she what came up for her was to spend more time with her little brother. And there was a major breakthrough
because
for her.
The fear was that she wouldn't be able to.
Correct. She said she realized she needs to spend much more time with her little brother. So from being not motivated to go to work, to dealing with your fear of dying, to realizing you actually need to what you need to do in your life. That's coaching.
So the question, what do you most fear if you die, helped her to see to be able to take action on something. And once she did that, then her motivation for work was restored.
And restored would be a big word, but yes, she was motivated because she knew what purpose is a big word, but she knew what her purpose was. To spend more time with her little brother in that moment. And once you operate from purpose, you find motivation to deal with crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Yeah. Oh, that's very cool.
So that was a tough session, and not every session is as hectic as this. But since you asked for an example, that was a pretty hectic coaching session, I must admit.
Yeah. Now, we started talking about this a bit. I would imagine personally, I would feel resistance turning towards negative emotions. I have all these strategies for avoiding boredom, especially. That's my biggest concern. And then especially a negative emotion like fear, to, how, even if it would help me with public speaking, I just, I can see that the desire and motivation is just the wanting to get rid of those emotions.
Okay. Amy, you're not the only one who says that.
Yeah.
So people would like to get rid of their emotions, but it's not possible.
Right.
Just to cut you off here right away, it's not possible to get rid of emotions. You can't even get rid of happiness. Imagine how that doesn't work either.
Good.
And so because emotions, they serve the purpose of our physical and psychological well-being and survival. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to get rid of it. Without fear, we wouldn't be here. Without us having emotions, we would not have survived.
Sure, and they serve an important purpose. I get that.
Exactly, and you can't get rid of them. And Amy, the other thing you mentioned is a negative emotion. Mm-hmm. There are no negative emotions. And there are no positive emotions. There are emotions, full stop. Mm-hmm. Only our mind labels those emotions as good or bad, depending on how they make us feel. But originally, the emotion itself is just an emotion. Mm-hmm. And how they make us feel, those emotions depend on, allow me to introduce a new term here, depends on their survival value.
Okay, say more.
So the survival value of fear is much higher than the survival value of happiness. In case whatever hits the fan and your life is in danger, the survival value of happiness is close to zero. But the survival value of fear is much higher because it creates you or prepares your body for action, for it brings up this motivational energy to move, to fight or flee or freeze. Yeah. So the motivational energy of trust, for example, forget it. That's why it goes down the drain the moment you experience fear. So there are no negative or positive emotions. There are just emotions.
Okay, so we can't get rid of the emotions. They serve a purpose. And still, I wonder how your coaching can help the clients to be better at like speaking in public, for example. If we go back to that initial theme.
Okay. I tell my clients, first of all, I don't make you feel better. Mm-hmm. I make you feel more. Mm-hmm. And it's not good advertisement, I know.
Really, I've got enough feelings, buddy.
But the feeling more means being with your deep emotions you've put away for years or decades. And it's this part which is the tough part, and people wonder, why do they actually pay money for emotions?
Okay, however, you cut out for a second. Repeat that lessons. Why do they actually pay money?
Yeah, they wonder because to be with those deep emotions they have suppressed for decades, right. For them to be in presence of those, which is, uncomfortable, brings
Yeah.
up lots of discomfort.
Yeah.
Why would they pay money for this?
Yeah.
So, however, there are tons of benefits. And the important ones are that if you accept and integrate your emotion, this allows you to shift their energy. And I mentioned before that the blocking emotions is this tension we feel. Imagine now you unblock that emotion, the tension drops.
Right. And
So,
we all
yeah,
know, maybe I'm leaping ahead, that by removing the tension and the stress, you're probably investing tremendously in your physical health and also emotional and mental health, because you're realigning things.
correct. Yeah, perfect. Exactly.
Yeah.
And a different or an additional benefit is um, the approach allows you to feel also the more what you would say positive emotions, because if you operate from fear, you cannot really enjoy happiness. And we
Right.
all know people who are just they're fearful 24/7. How
Mm-hmm.
happy can you be if you are living in fear, if you're nervous 24/7?
Mm-hmm.
So if you accept and integrate all aspects of who you are, including your fears,
Mm-hmm.
you can also be happy again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have availability to the full spectrum.
That's it's the full spectrum.
Mm.
Another benefit is what we did in the little exercise during the break, to tap into your body and feel how you are, feel
Yeah.
the sensations. This brings you into the now, Amy.
Mm.
The mind tends to take us into the past or the present.
Okay.
But we as human beings, we feel alive when we actually live in the now.
Mm-hmm.
Tapping into your body, checking your breathing, checking your heartbeat, checking sensations allows you to live in the now.
Let's give a plug for the book by our Austrian friend.
Oh, Eckhart Tolle, yes.
Yes, Eckhart Tolle. The
Yes.
Power of Now.
The Power of Now, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
People,
If people want to know more. Mm-hmm.
millions of people, it's an international bestseller.
Yes.
And people crave to be living in the now. And tapping into your body allows you to be in the now. And if you do this for a couple of times a day, wonderful. Just
okay,
check.
so I'm going to pause you for a second. Thank you. Because in a few minutes, I know you're going to give listeners a call for action. And before we go there, I want to just see if we can spend, maybe 30 seconds, a minute on how can, with the world in the state it's in with this pandemic, and so many of us are struggling on different levels, how can an embodied life coaching help here?
I would apply, or actually do apply, this very same process. The deep emotion which comes up often is grief, because living in this pandemic where people cannot attend their loved one's funeral, they cannot say goodbye. Just what you read in the papers is just terrible.
Right.
So the grief does not find expression.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just do the very same process to check where does the grief show up in the body, and locate it and be in presence with that grief and allow it to express itself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, Matthias, the grief is such a fascinating and important element. I'm going to actually have a guest on, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, talking about the importance of working through grief and how that can help us as leaders and in the business world as well. So, Matthias, we're going to move into wrap up now. And I know you have a rich call for action. Let's hear what it is.
The call for action is to take 30 seconds a few times a day, focus on your body, and just focus on the sensation. See what's happening in your body. And then try to name the dominant emotion behind those sensations. And again, don't go to your mind to figure out how you feel. And the call of action is to experience even unpleasant sensations. When you do so, don't suppress them. Feel into them, name the emotion, and then express it. Perhaps you want to jump, or perhaps you want to go to a forest and scream, or you want to laugh, or whatever it is. Express that emotion. And the last thing, Amy, is there's an emotion called gratitude.
Ah, yes.
And next time your mind takes you into the future because you're nervous or anxious or whatever, just tap into your gratefulness. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful for the air you're breathing. Be grateful for anything you have in your life. It will also help you to live in the now. And on that subject, Amy, I feel grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to speak about something which makes us human, our emotions.
Yes. Oh, Matthias, that's gorgeous. And thank you for sharing what you're grateful for. And what I'm grateful for is you were so generous with your time in preparing this and discussing this, and you made it very joyful for me. So thank you. I'm definitely grateful for that.
Pleasure.
So listen, I want to add to Matthias's call for action, because one of the things that you heard Matthias say earlier was how we struggle with our emotional literacy. So if you want to get better at identifying your feelings and your emotions before they become feelings, if you'll email me on amy@carrollcoaching.com, and I will send you a list of feelings and needs that comes from NVC called nonviolent communication. This is, for me, the complementary model to the work I do around predator-prey partner. And the needs is a bonus because it'll help you be able to offer yourself emergency self-empathy and to offer others empathy. So there's a whole bonus in that. My second call for action: send me your communication conundrums, clashes, challenges, mishaps, blunders, and successes via my email or social media, and I'll read them and discuss them on future shows and make suggestions. Matthias would love to hear from you personally, and don't be shy to get in touch with him. Now consider this: the fear which holds you back from contacting Matthias may be the same fear which holds you back in other areas of your life. So if there's truth to that, then send him an email. And that email is coaching@embody.one. And that's EMBODHI.ONE. That's his website as well. And you can again reach him on LinkedIn, Matthias Hartmann, with 2 N's at the end there. Now, be sure to tune in next week. I'm going to be interviewing Sarah Payton, a neuroscience educator and author. We'll be exploring why it's so hard to receive feedback. What happens to people's nervous systems when they receive feedback? What's the ideal state for receiving feedback, and much, much more. Also, if you're game for more, I'll be hopping over to Facebook Live in 5 minutes past the hour for a short chat on today's show. Feel free to connect with me on my social media channels, Amy Carroll Coaching, and my website, carrollcoaching.com. That's 2 R's and 2 L's. Matthias, thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Amy. Honored to be here.
And thank you, listeners. You've been listening to Partner Up with Amy Carroll on the Voice America Business Channel. Happy partnering, everyone.